The individual asked, where'd you do your bid? I didn't understand. I couldn't hear him. Queen pipes up, well, where did you do your time? That's an interesting question, because I'm pretty sure I've never, not one time, ever mentioned a correctional facility as an adult I have ever been in. Does not mean I didn't get 6 or 7 felonies. It's called a plea deal and a good attorney. It's called having a basically clean record all the way up until then. It's called having written statements from people within the community and within professionalism or professions that spoke to my character and spoke to me in a relapse as opposed to a criminal. I got blessed. I was lucky. My shit was in one state. I was living in another state. The state that I lived in refused to take my what was considered, I say extreme supervised probation, but it was like daily check-in, twice a week drug test. Like if you got called, you had like 30 to 60 minutes, depending on your case, to get to not a drug testing center. You had to go down to probation and parole. Well, I live in a whole nother state. That was never going to work. I'd get violated like that. Now, if I got violated, I went for my whole sentence. That was over my head. So, and I had 5 years over my head. That's the plea deal I ended up getting. 5 years suspended with 3 years intensive probation or parole, depending on which state you're in or how it's handled. And so when the state that I was in, the state that I was in, living in, refused to take, responsibility for my case, my attorney filed a petition with the court to come back in front of the court. We came back in front of the court. My attorney explained to the court, or maybe the court called us back in because they refused it, something along those lines. Went back in front of the court, and I went in there with drug tests already done. Like I said, I've said this before, keeping a track weekly to make sure I had evidence that I had stayed clean. And her taking that into consideration, me being in another state, it's on the record that she took my autism into consideration. She took the travel stress into consideration. And she said, after reviewing my community risk score, which was like a 0.5, which if you know is fucking nothing, right? So the judge ended up determining to give me the 3 years on unsupervised probation with the caveats that within those 3 years, if I as much got a misdemeanor for spitting on the fucking sidewalk, I was going to do my 5 years, 100. Now, could I be off on that a tiny little bit? Yeah, it's been fucking 7, 8 years and I'm sober now. And a lot of memories are a little when it comes to the timeline. Not that I feel like I have to sit here and explain this to everybody, but not everybody that catches felonies go to prison. You know what I'm saying? And that's not on anybody that's done time. I had a good attorney. I was lucky. And unfortunately, in the middle of it, a very, very, very special and important person to me who happened to be a big interest was taken from this world. There you go. That's what it is. It's not a big secret. When I talk about being locked up, I'm talking about 14 to 18. I'm talking about Woodland Hills and a temporary time in Taft. That's my time being locked up. And if you think, oh, that's not shit, okay. Why don't you talk to somebody that was in Woodland Hills from like starting in 98? '97, '98, going into 2001, 2002. Come on now. Which one you want to talk about? The pre-1999 retransformation of the facility where they reclassified everything? Or you want to talk about 1998 when I went in and it was under age class and classification was based on what your crime was and what your score was? I don't have to sit here and fucking lie about nothing. You're going to talk about whose dorm's next to the cafeteria, whose dorm's next to the fucking yard. You want me to give a breakdown? Because unless you were there in 98, 99, 2000, you're not going to know a whole lot, because in 2004, 2005, they redid the campus again. But the fact that I even have to talk about this is crazy. I'm in my fucking 40s. And I'm having to talk about some shit I did when I was 13 years old. So When I say something like, I did my time, I did my crime, I did my time, I did. I completed my plea deal. Not a single violation, not a single fucking negative nothing. And I haven't used dope since the day that they put them cuffs on me, which was September 11th, 2018. Well, it's 2000, or it was September 11th going into the morning of September 12th. Like I said, y'all want to call me a liar in this community over here, not ours, all the time. 2019, sorry, not 2018. Not 2018. It was 2019. My apologies. And if y'all remember, I've talked to y'all several times about the fact that I'm interested in, applying to get my gun rights back. I've always said I got a couple more years because my sentence was 3 years probation, suspended, or a 5 year with 5 years suspended, 3 years supervision, right? So my 5 years to be able to apply doesn't start until 3 years after the sentencing, right? So I was sentenced in 2020, I believe, which means I came off in 2023. So then that would mean 2028 before I can apply to have my firearm rights back. And that's if I can bypass what they consider an unexpungible felony, which is tampering with physical evidence. And so, yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, and I haven't looked at my charges in years and don't especially remember them, my original charges were fleeing and eluding, possession with intent on cannabis / vapes, possession of cocaine, possession of methamphetamine with intent, possession of unknown prescription medication, excuse me, possession of unknown medication. It was all enhanced because I had a firearm underneath my seat. And I'm missing something else. And there's something else on there I'm missing, another substance. In the end, if I'm not mistaken, my plea deal came down to, and I could be off on this, but my plea deal came down to keeping the tampering with physical evidence. It went from fleeing and eluding in a vehicle to fleeing and eluding on foot, which changed that felony to a misdemeanor, if I'm not mistaken. Then the cocaine charge was thrown out. The possession of methamphetamine was changed to under XYZ, whatever it was, but it was still a felony. The felony enhancement with the firearm, or not the felony enhancement. So the problem with me, why it ended up being 7 felonies, if I'm not mistaken, it was between 6 and 8. I want to say 7, but it could have been 6, was because the enhancement of the firearm caused any of the misdemeanors essentially to immediately go to felonies, because when you have a firearm and drugs together at any time, that enhancement comes in immediately. So now that misdemeanor amount of cocaine, for example, is now a felony amount of cocaine because it is in association with a firearm. So that's why a lot of my felonies, once the enhancement was taken away, a lot of my felonies dropped. Now, as far as saying I was a convict or I'm a convict, you would have to show me a video of saying that, because I simply don't recall, and I've never claimed to be in prison. I said I have done my time for my crime. You've never heard me talk about nothing when it comes to a facility or a placement or none of that. The only thing you've ever heard me talk about is Woodland Hills, which, for those who don't know, is in between Riverbend Maximum Security Prison, the women's prison, and the mental health prison, which AKA Death Row Women's Prison, Woodland Hills, which also used to be known back before, I think in 1996 or 1995, it was known as Spencer Youth Center. So yeah, I grew up in West Nashville. I'm very familiar with it, and I spent a lot of time there, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Yeah, that enhancement on the gun gets you every fucking time. So it's not a crazy thing. Oh, he walked with 7 felonies. No. When that gun enhancement was taken away, it dropped a shit ton of things from felonies to misdemeanors. Still heavy misdemeanors at the time, but ultimately, maybe I think I took a plea that had 4 felonies. It doesn't matter. 1 felony is enough. It fucked my life as far as my security business went. It fucked my life as far as being on the road doing bodyguard work armed. It fucked my business on being able to do direct, have a direct protection company as opposed to a consulting company with independent contractors, which is a whole nother fucking world of fucking dealing with. But I say these things because, like, I don't run from that shit. Maybe some people do. Could there be a few things that I'm off on? Sure, share them. I'm not scared of my past, and I'm definitely not scared of my record. I'm definitely not proud to have done stupid shit. But I got away with a lot more than I ever got caught doing. So I guess I got to be blessed with the little shit I did get fucked with. I mean, we're talking about shit where the vapes were taken, the picture of the vapes were taken in the front seat of the car on the floor, but never made it to the evidence room. We're talking about a police department that took methamphetamine and poured it into the baggie they said had trace amounts of cocaine in it so that they could get me with distribution on cocaine, when in fact it was obviously methamphetamine shard. Well, ground up. I say ground up. It's, you know, it's the push and pull at the bottom of the fucking bag. And I would keep it in this big pill bottle. The tampering with physical evidence came from when I threw a bottle of my own Adderall out the window, thinking I was throwing the bottle of the methamphetamine out the window. That's how fucking tweaked, fucking twacked, and out of it I was. So I got charged with throwing my own medication out the window. And in the state that I was charged in, it doesn't matter whether what you threw out was illegal or not. It was the fact that you were trying to tamper with something. So like I said, no reason to lie. And when you see the county that I actually got popped in, it's going to make all the sense in the world. While someone driving an Audi A4 with racing tires and sounded like a fucking beast ever would have been called up by the fucking task force to get pulled over in the middle of the night by a CI. You're going to tell me this is a regular stop, but when I turned onto the road, all you saw was Christmas lights pop up behind you like you had a whole parade coming? You better get the fuck out of here.